Officer Emily Hayes didn't expect anything unusual that morning until she heard soft paw steps behind her. When she turned around, a German shepherd puppy was following her. His fur was dirty, his paws were scraped, and he was trembling so hard his legs could barely hold him up. But his eyes were begging her for something she couldn't yet understand. At first, Emily smiled, thinking he was just a lost puppy. Then she thought he might be hungry. Every time Emily walked, he followed. Every time she stopped, he froze. The puppy refused to leave her side, no matter how many times she gently tried to shoo him away. It was as if he was begging her to understand something he couldn't say. Then Emily noticed the fear in his eyes, and the way he kept tugging at her uniform, desperately trying to lead her somewhere. When Emily finally knelt down and tried to pick him up, tried to help him, he refused to be held. Instead, he tugged at her pant leg, barked, and sprinted toward the forest, stopping only to look back and make sure she was following. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. That's when she realized this wasn't a lost dog, this was a cry for help. And when Emily finally decided to follow him, she uncovered a heartbreaking truth no one was prepared for. When she finally understood what he was trying to show her, she dropped to her knees and burst into tears. Stay with us, because this story will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The morning started like any other for Officer Emily Hayes. Quiet, still, and wrapped in the soft hush of the forest road she patrolled every week. The tall pines swayed gently overhead, their shadows stretching long across the dirt path as the early sun filtered through the branches. Emily breathed in the crisp, cool air, enjoying the rare moment of calm before the day demanded her attention. Out here, nothing ever happened. No traffic, no calls, no chaos. It was the one route where she could gather her thoughts. But today, something felt different. As her boots crunched along the road, she noticed a small movement at the far end of the path. At first, she thought it was a squirrel darting across the road or maybe a rabbit hopping into the bushes. But the shape didn't disappear. It stayed, still, watching her. Emily slowed her pace. The tiny figure stood alone in the center of the road, its silhouette trembling slightly in the morning breeze. As she stepped closer, the shape sharpened into view. Small paws, pointed ears, soft brown and black fur. A German shepherd puppy. Emily blinked in surprise. Puppies didn't just appear in the middle of the forest like this. Not this far from town. Not alone. "What are you doing out here, little one?" she murmured under her breath. The puppy didn't run, didn't bark, didn't even flinch. Instead, he stared straight at her with wide, frightened eyes. Eyes that looked far too aware, too desperate for a dog his age. Emily took a few careful steps forward, scanning the area for signs of an owner. A vehicle, a leash, a backpack, anything, nothing. There was only the empty road, the silent forest, and the fragile pup standing completely alone. Her instincts buzzed. Something wasn't right. Emily crouched slightly, keeping her voice soft and warm. "Hey, buddy, are you lost?" The puppy tilted his head but didn't move. His tail wasn't wagging. His body wasn't playful. He just stood there, frozen, almost waiting. She took a slow step forward, and the moment she did, the puppy took one step back. Not in fear, but as if guiding her. Emily paused. His behavior was strange, not typical for a scared puppy. He wasn't trying to flee. He wasn't trying to approach her either. It felt like he was trying to get her to understand something, to follow him, or to follow his lead. Emily straightened, scanning the tree line more carefully now. The forest seemed undisturbed at first glance, but the air held a tension she couldn't ignore. A subtle wrongness, a heaviness. Then her eyes drifted back to the puppy. He hadn't taken his eyes off her. "Where's your family?" she whispered. The puppy finally moved, slowly, deliberately. He turned his body halfway toward the woods, looking over his shoulder to lock eyes with her again. He waited, then took another small step. Emily's heart tightened. That wasn't random behavior. That was intent. She stepped forward again. The puppy repeated his movement. One step back, eyes fixed on her, almost pleading. A chill rolled up her spine. Someone trained this puppy. Or something happened that forced him to act beyond instinct. Either way, he wasn't wandering. He wasn't lost. He needed help. Emily exhaled softly. "Okay, little guy. Show me." The puppy's ears perked. And for the first time, he moved more quickly, turning and trotting a few feet ahead before stopping, checking, waiting. Emily followed. Down the quiet forest road, a tiny pup led a full-grown officer toward something she could not yet see, but could already feel. Something was very, very wrong. Emily continued down the forest road, her senses sharpening with each step. The tiny German Shepherd pup stayed a few feet ahead of her, moving with an unsettling determination. He wasn't playful, like most puppies his age. He didn't get distracted by leaves or insects or the sound of branches swaying overhead. His focus was locked, so sharply fixed on something deeper in the woods that it made Emily's stomach twist. Every few steps, the puppy would stop in the center of the road, turn his head, and check whether she was still behind him. His little chest rose and fell quickly, as if he'd been running a long distance before she even appeared. There was exhaustion in his posture, but also a stubborn resolve that kept him going. Emily tried again, her voice gentle. "Hey, do you want me to pick you up? Are you hurt?" The puppy stiffened and took 2 quick steps away, not out of fear but as if saying, "No, not that way. Follow me." She exhaled slowly. This wasn't random behavior. Animals didn't act like this unless something had pushed them to it. Emily glanced left and right, nothing but towering trees and an eerie, unnatural stillness. Normally, birds chirped above her, squirrels raced along the branches, and the wind carried the layered sounds of forest life. Today, silence. Complete silence. "All right, little guy," Emily murmured. "I'm coming." The puppy seemed relieved. He trotted ahead again, tiny paws tapping softly against the dirt, but there was urgency in the way he moved now. Faster steps, nervous glances, ears perked with tension. Emily followed more closely. 100 questions spun in her mind. Had he been abandoned? Was someone missing? Had he escaped from a home or a training facility? Why was he alone? And why was he acting like he needed her specifically? She tried to get closer again, crouching slightly. "Buddy, if someone hurt you..." The puppy suddenly froze mid-step. Emily's heart skipped. His small body went rigid, tail dropping low, ears pointing straight ahead. Something had triggered him, something she couldn't see yet. Then he turned, eyes locking onto hers with a look so raw, so helpless it made her chest ache. He took a slow step toward her, then another. And then, to her surprise, he brushed gently against her leg. "Hey," she whispered, startled by the unexpected trust. But just as quickly the pup pulled away again and darted a few steps forward, checking that she followed. Emily felt the shift inside her. This wasn't a lost animal hoping for food or warmth. This was a creature who had chosen her for a reason he could not explain but desperately needed her to understand. She straightened, breathing in deeply. "All right, lead the way." The puppy's ears twitched. He took another step, then another, guiding her off the familiar patrol road and toward a narrower, rougher stretch of path. Emily hesitated. This wasn't part of her usual route. The trees grew denser here, the light dimmer, the air heavier. And yet, she couldn't turn back. Not when the tiny pup kept stopping, looking at her with eyes that begged her not to leave him alone. Not when his trembling was worsening. Not when he clearly trusted her more than anyone in the world. Emily followed him deeper into the unknown. She had no idea that with each step, she was walking closer to a truth that would break her heart and change her life forever. The deeper they went into the forest, the more Emily felt that creeping, instinctive pressure at the back of her neck, the kind that whispered that something was wrong, that something unseen was watching. The puppy's pace slowed, his tiny paws sinking into the softened earth as the sunlight grew thinner beneath the canopy. He kept glancing back at her, but now his eyes held something different. Not urgency, not fear, but pain. Emily stopped. "Buddy," she said softly, "come here for a second." The puppy hesitated, ears flicking nervously as if torn between obeying her and continuing toward whatever destination he had etched into his instincts. Finally, he took 2 tiny steps toward her, just close enough for Emily to reach out. She crouched down slowly, moving carefully so she wouldn't frighten him. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm not going to hurt you." The puppy trembled as she extended her hand, but he didn't back away this time. Emily let him sniff her fingers first. When he didn't pull back, she gently placed her hand under his chin, lifting his tiny face so she could look him over. That's when she saw it. A faint red indentation around his neck, as if a collar had been ripped off recently, not removed gently. Torn. The edges of the fur were matted, slightly raw. Emily's breath caught. "Who did this to you?" she whispered. She brushed the fur lightly around the mark, careful not to cause him pain. The puppy winced anyway, a tiny whimper escaping his throat. It was barely audible, but it hit her like a punch. This wasn't a stray. He wasn't wild. He belonged to someone, and something terrible had happened. Emily looked closer, scanning the rest of his tiny body. His paws were caked in dirt, packed into the pads as though he'd been digging for a long time. Fresh scratches lined his legs. Not deep, but enough to show he had pushed through thick brush or thorny undergrowth. But what unsettled her most wasn't the injuries. It was the tension in his muscles, the way his small frame was tight, like a spring ready to snap. He wasn't resting. He wasn't safe. His body was coiled with stress far beyond what a puppy should feel. Almost like he'd been trying to warn someone for hours. Emily sat down fully now, knees pressing into the cool forest floor. "Okay," she murmured gently. "Show me again. What are you trying to tell me?" The puppy pressed his forehead against her boot, just for a moment. A gesture of trust, a silent plea. And then, just as quickly, he turned and trotted away from her, but this time he didn't go far. He stopped a short distance ahead, looking over his shoulder, eyes glistening, waiting, begging. Emily stood, her heartbeat quickening. She knew that look. She had seen it in victims before, humans who couldn't speak but needed help desperately. The puppy barked once, a sharp, tiny sound that echoed strangely in the still forest. He wanted her to follow. Emily felt something shift inside her, a sense of responsibility, and something deeper. This little creature had trusted her, had chosen her. "All right," she whispered, "lead me." And as the puppy turned and headed toward the thick undergrowth, Emily followed him into the shadows, unaware that the truth waiting ahead would shake her to the core. The forest thickened around them, branches tightening like a tunnel as Emily followed the trembling German Shepherd pup deeper off the familiar patrol route. The air grew colder, heavier, carrying a faint earthy scent that didn't sit right with her. The puppy moved cautiously at first, his steps soft and hesitant. But then, something shifted. His ears shot up, his tail stiffened, and without warning, he bolted. "Hey, wait!" Emily called, instinctively sprinting after him. But the tiny pup didn't vanish into the trees the way a scared dog might. Instead, he ran forward only a few yards before stopping abruptly and turning around, his little chest heaving. He fixed his gaze on her, eyes wide, pleading, then ran again. Stop, look back, run, Stop. Look back. Run. Every movement screamed urgency. Emily pushed through branches, her uniform catching on thorns as she tried to keep him in sight. The forest floor sloped downward, uneven and damp, forcing her to slow her pace. Still, the pup refused to go on without her. Every time she stumbled or lagged behind, he would pause, whine anxiously, and wait until she caught up before sprinting forward once more. Okay, she panted. I'm here. I'm right here. But the puppy wasn't reassured. His movements grew more frantic, his barks sharper, bouncing through the quiet forest with a desperation that made Emily's heartbeat thunder. Something was ahead. Something he was terrified of. Or something he was desperate for her to reach. As she pressed on, the ground became softer, footprints becoming more visible. Animal prints, large and deep, and next to them, smaller ones she immediately recognized as the puppy's. Her breath caught. The little guy had been here before, recently, and he hadn't been alone. Emily knelt to examine the tracks, brushing away leaves. She could tell by the patterns. The larger prints belonged to an adult German shepherd. A trained one, its stride was straight, disciplined, not erratic like a wild animal's. But the tracks grew uneven a few feet ahead, dragging slightly as though the dog had been limping or injured. Her stomach tightened. The puppy barked again, drawing her gaze upward. He stood a few yards away, body angled toward something beyond the trees. Something hidden, something that made him tremble visibly. Emily rose slowly. "You're leading me somewhere, aren't you?" she whispered. The puppy let out a soft whine and nudged his nose toward the thick undergrowth ahead before darting forward again, more urgently this time. This run was shorter, the pause quicker, his eyes more frantic than before. He was begging her to hurry. Emily pushed through the brush, branches snapping under her boots, her pulse racing. Each step carried a deeper sense of dread. The trees seemed to close in, the world narrowing to only the tiny figure ahead of her and the invisible danger he was trying to show her. Finally, the pup stopped, completely still. He turned toward her slowly, his body trembling, ears pinned flat in fear. Then he took a tiny step to the side, revealing a narrow hidden path she hadn't seen before. A path disturbed recently, a path marked by struggle, a path that led somewhere the puppy desperately wanted her to go. Emily swallowed hard. "Okay," she whispered, "let's see what you've been trying to show me." She stepped onto the hidden trail, unaware that what waited at the end would shatter her heart. Emily stepped cautiously onto the narrow hidden path, her instincts humming louder with each passing second. The air felt different here, still, heavy, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. The tiny German shepherd puppy stayed right beside her now, no longer running ahead but walking close, enough that his fur brushed her boot every few steps. He wasn't leading anymore. He was clinging to her, and that terrified Emily more than anything. She reached for the radio, clipped to her vest. "Dispatch, this is Officer Hayes. I need a status check. Possible abandoned animal, unknown situation. Requesting backup. Static. No voice, no crackle. Just a dull, empty hiss." Emily frowned and adjusted her position, lifting the radio higher. "Dispatch, do you copy?" More static. Great. They were too deep into the forest. The signal always dropped in the valleys, but today it felt deliberate, as if the world had closed in around them, isolating them on purpose. A bad sign. A very bad sign. The puppy whined softly, nudging her leg. "I know, buddy," Emily murmured. "I'm trying." She turned in a slow circle, scanning for higher ground, for an opening in the canopy, anything that might give her enough reception to get a word out. But the trees loomed tall and dense, swallowing the sunlight and blocking any clear line to the sky. She tried again, anyway. "Dispatch, I have a possible injured animal situation, maybe more. I need assistance ASAP. Do you copy?" The forest answered her with silence. Emily lowered the radio, her jaw tightening. She wasn't just dealing with a lost puppy anymore. Something, or someone, was out here, and whatever had happened had forced this little dog to seek help from the only person he trusted. Her. The puppy pawed at her boot again, tugging gently before turning toward the disturbed path. His eyes pleaded with her, "Don't stop now." Emily nodded. "All right, we'll figure this out together." She followed him deeper into the trees, pushing past thick branches that seemed determined to hold her back. Every so often she'd reach for the radio again, hoping for a miracle, but each attempt greeted her with the same dead static. She wasn't getting help. Not yet. Not until she figured out what lay ahead. The path sloped downward again, soft earth shifting beneath her boots. She noticed more signs now: broken twigs, scuffed leaves, fresh paw prints pressed deep into the dirt. The adult dog's tracks were unmistakable. But the pattern worried her. The gait had grown increasingly uneven. Then, several feet ahead, she saw it: a smear of dried blood on a rock. Her breath hitched. She crouched to examine it, fingers hovering just above the mark. Oh no! The puppy's whimper broke her focus. He stood rigid beside her, staring down the path with his tail tucked, trembling. Emily stood and looked ahead. The trail twisted sharply, disappearing behind dense brush. Beyond it, she felt something. An energy, a presence, a warning. Whatever had happened here, the worst part was still ahead. She tightened her grip on the radio even though she knew it wouldn't help. "Stay close," she whispered. The puppy nodded, as if he understood. Together, they stepped deeper into the forest, alone, with no signal, no backup, and no idea that they were walking straight into a scene that would haunt Emily forever. The moment Emily stepped past the sharp bend in the trail, the forest seemed to change. The air grew colder, the shadows darker, and the silence deeper, so deep it rang in her ears. The puppy slowed again, nose to the ground, sniffing intently as he walked in uneasy circles before returning to her side with a soft whine. His anxiety radiated off him like heat. Emily's pulse quickened. She scanned the ground more carefully now, her eyes trained to detect patterns others might miss. And that's when she saw it. A patch of flattened leaves, pushed down in a frantic struggle. Nearby, a small clump of fur, gray and tan, familiar German Shepherd coloring, caught on a thorn. Emily's stomach twisted. She crouched and held the delicate strands between her fingers. This wasn't an accident. Something violent had happened here, recently. The puppy whimpered behind her, pacing and sniffing, his tiny body trembling with fear and desperation. Emily stood and followed his gaze. A narrow clearing stretched ahead, the ground disturbed, branches broken. Whatever had happened here wasn't subtle. It was chaotic and dangerous. She stepped forward slowly, each movement deliberate. "Easy," she whispered to the pup. "I'm right here." As they walked deeper into the clearing, Emily noticed more evidence: a snapped branch streaked with blood, paw prints circling erratically, indentations where something heavy had fallen or been dragged. She knelt beside one of the prints. It belonged to an adult German Shepherd, the same size as the injured tracks she'd seen earlier. But there was something else. A second set of prints overlapped the dog's paw prints. Larger, human. Someone had been here, and that someone wasn't gentle. Emily's breath hitched as she followed the chaotic trail with her eyes. It led toward a cluster of thick underbrush. The leaves were bent in unnatural angles, as if something, or someone, had shoved through them forcefully. She approached the area carefully. A faint metallic smell drifted through the air. Blood. Her chest tightened. She pushed aside the branches, and the sight beneath them made her heart sink. The ground was stained with dried blood, but not a pool. Just scattered droplets, smeared as if an injured animal had fought desperately to stay upright. She imagined the adult dog, injured but refusing to give up, resisting whatever threat had cornered her. Suddenly, the puppy let out a sharp bark, not aggressive, but panicked. He darted around her, nose pressed to the dirt, sniffing furiously as he traced a tight circle. His whines grew louder, more frantic. Emily knelt and gently touched his back. "Your mom was here, wasn't she?" she whispered. The puppy's entire body shuddered in response. He lowered his head, pressing his nose into the exact spot where the blood droplets trailed off, into a thin line. A drag mark. Emily followed it with her eyes and felt her breath catch. The mark disappeared into an even narrower path, one she never would have noticed if the puppy hadn't shown her. A hidden deer trail, barely wide enough for a grown adult to slip through. Emily's heartbeat thundered. Whoever dragged the injured dog didn't want to be found. She looked down at the trembling pup. "You've been trying to bring me here this whole time." The puppy whimpered softly, staring at the hidden path with pleading eyes. Emily inhaled deeply, steadying herself. Whatever lay ahead, she had to face it. "All right," she whispered, pushing branches aside. "Show me the rest." Together, they stepped into the hidden trail, toward the truth the forest had tried to bury. The hidden deer trail tightened as Emily and the puppy pushed deeper into the forest. Branches clawed at her sleeves, and the undergrowth thickened with every step, as though nature itself was trying to shield whatever lay ahead. The puppy stayed close, no longer darting or hesitating, just walking with a trembling determination that broke Emily's heart. About 20 yards in, the narrow trail opened into a small, uneven clearing, and the moment Emily stepped into it, she felt the shift. Something terrible had happened here. Her eyes swept the ground first. The earth was torn up, claw marks etched deep into the soil. Leaves were scattered in violent swirls. Chunks of dirt and broken twigs lay everywhere. This wasn't just a struggle. This was a fight for survival. Emily knelt beside a patch of disturbed ground, running her fingers gently across the uneven soil. She could almost feel the panic that had played out here, the frantic movement, the desperation. Her training kicked in, guiding her eyes toward details others might overlook. A torn piece of nylon fabric lay tangled in the brush. Emily picked it up slowly. It was part of a harness, a working dog harness. Her breath caught. Oh, no. The puppy let out a soft, mournful sound and pressed his head against her knee. Emily's chest tightened. This wasn't just his mother out here. She had been trained, a K9, a protector, a fighter who'd refused to give up even when she was hurt. Emily rose and continued scanning the clearing. Then she saw it. Half hidden under a pile of leaves, a cell phone, its screen shattered, casing cracked. She lifted it carefully. There was dried mud smeared across the back, but faint letters were still visible. Unit Trainer Log. The rest was too damaged to read, but Emily didn't need more. Whoever trained the mother dog had been here, and something had gone horribly wrong. She swallowed hard and kept searching. A few feet away, deep scratches marked the trunk of a tree. Not random. They were deliberate. Claw marks from a large dog trying to gain footing or hold its ground. Next to them, gouged into the bark, was a deeper indentation, as if something heavy had been slammed against it. Emily's pulse quickened. A predator? A human? Multiple attackers? The forest offered no answers. She followed the chaotic trail around the clearing until she reached the far side. There, pressed into the dirt, she saw more footprints. Human prints. 2 distinct sizes. One large, one average. They overlapped with paw prints stained with faint dried blood. Her stomach twisted. The mother dog had been fighting off more than one threat. The puppy barked sharply, pulling Emily's attention to a tangled patch of bushes. She moved toward it and parted the branches. Another clue. A larger piece of fabric. Dark, heavy, torn from clothing. And beneath it, a broken metal buckle, the kind used on tactical gear. Emily froze. This wasn't random. This wasn't wildlife. This wasn't an accident. Someone had tried to take the K9. Someone dangerous. She knelt again beside the trembling pup. "You saw it, didn't you?" she whispered. "You tried to help her, and then you came to find someone who could." The puppy whimpered, nuzzling her hands, shaking violently. Emily stood, resolve hardening in her chest. "Don't worry, we're not giving up." She looked toward the next set of disturbed brush, the continuation of the struggle's trail. "Lead me," she whispered, and with a tiny, trembling nod, the puppy obeyed. Together, they followed the trail into the deepest part of the forest, toward a truth more heartbreaking than Emily was prepared for. The forest grew eerily quiet as Emily and the puppy pushed deeper along the trail of broken branches and disturbed earth. The sunlight barely reached the ground now, filtered into thin, ghostly beams that made the air look hazy. Every few steps, Emily felt the weight of the silence pressing against her ears, amplifying the beat of her heart. The puppy stayed close but suddenly began sniffing harder, pulling ahead with renewed urgency. "Easy," Emily whispered, though she knew he couldn't slow down. Something ahead was calling to him, something he needed her to see. Then, without warning, the pup stopped. His body went rigid, his nose pressed to the soil. A soft, trembling whine slipped from his throat. Emily approached slowly. "What is it, buddy?" The puppy pawed the earth. Once, twice, and then began digging frantically, dirt flying behind him in tiny sprays. His claws tore into the ground with desperate speed, as if he feared what he sought might disappear before he reached it. Emily knelt beside him. "Careful," she murmured, gently guiding the soil aside so he wouldn't injure himself. The earth here was softer, disturbed recently, and as they dug deeper, the smell of damp soil intensified. The puppy's whines grew sharper. Okay, I'm helping." Emily brushed aside a layer of dirt, and then froze as something dark and fabric-like came into view. A strap, a black nylon strap. Her pulse spiked. She cleared more earth with shaking hands until the full outline emerged. A harness. A large one. She lifted it carefully from the shallow dirt, shaking off the soil clinging to the material. The puppy let out a heartbreaking cry, pressing his tiny nose into the harness and nudging it urgently as if hoping the scent alone would bring someone back. Emily's breath caught. This wasn't just any harness. It bore a patch, muddy, torn but still legible enough to make her chest tighten. K9, Training Unit. She traced the letters with her thumb, her throat tightening. The adult German Shepherd hadn't been just any dog. She was a trained, working dog. A protector, a fighter, possibly part of a specialized litter program. And someone had buried her harness. Not lost it. Buried it. To hide evidence. Emily looked around the clearing again, her eyes scanning the trees, the ground, the disturbed brush. Whoever had attacked the mother dog hadn't wanted her found, at least not alive. The puppy let out a soft, heart-wrenching whimper and pawed at the earth again as if searching for more. Searching for her. Emily touched his back gently. Hey, I know. I know you're scared." The puppy curled against the harness, resting his tiny head on it. His body shook in small, helpless tremors. The image punched straight through Emily's chest. This wasn't just loss. It was love, loyalty, grief. He'd seen his mother being taken or attacked. He'd followed her scent until he reached this place. And when he couldn't save her, he'd done the only thing he could. He'd gone to find help. Emily swallowed hard, fighting the sting behind her eyes. "You did the right thing," she whispered. "You found me, and we're not stopping now. We're going to find her." The puppy lifted his head slowly, eyes glassy but filled with flickering hope. Emily stood, harness in hand, and looked toward the forest where the trail continued, faint but unmistakable. "Come on," she murmured. "Let's go." With a small, determined bark, the puppy followed her, leading her toward the truth that waited in the shadows. Emily stood frozen, the muddy K9 harness hanging from her trembling hand, the puppy's desperate whimpers echoing through the still forest. The quiet around them felt heavier now, thicker, as if the trees themselves were bracing for the truth she was about to uncover. She stared at the torn patch again. K9, training unit. Her mind raced. A trained K9, a missing adult German shepherd, a buried harness, signs of a struggle, dragging marks, human footprints. Piece by piece the picture formed, dark, painful, undeniable. This wasn't an accidental separation. This wasn't a simple lost dog scenario. This was deliberate. Someone had attacked the mother dog. Someone had tried to take her, or silence her. Emily inhaled sharply, forcing her breathing to steady. She had seen dogs injured before, even abandoned. But this had intent behind it. Malice. Someone trying to hide evidence meant something far worse than an accident had happened. The puppy nudged the harness again, pressing his face against it as tiny whimpers shook his body. Emily's throat tightened. "You tried to help her, didn't you?" she whispered. "And when you couldn't, you came to find someone who could." His ears drooped, his tail curled inward, and his trembling grew stronger, not weaker, as if he sensed the truth settling over them like a dark cloud. Emily crouched beside him, lifting his tiny chin so he would meet her eyes. "Listen to me," she murmured. "Your mom is trained. She's strong. She fought hard, and she's out there somewhere." But as she said the words aloud, her stomach sank, because she realized another painful truth. The mother dog had been injured badly. She had been dragged. She had lost enough blood to weaken her, and she had been taken deeper into the forest. For what purpose, Emily didn't know. Whoever took her, Emily whispered, they didn't want her found. She looked again at the dirt around the shallow grave where the harness had been hidden. The soil was smooth on top, but not naturally. Someone had patted it down deliberately. Someone had kneeled here, burying the harness quickly, efficiently, with purpose. A professional? A poacher? A criminal who feared a trained K9 could identify them. Whatever the reason, hiding the harness meant only one thing. They intended to come back. Or they thought she wouldn't survive long enough to matter. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, pressing her hand against her forehead as the weight of the discovery settled over her. She tried her radio again. Nothing but static. They were still alone. No backup, no communication, only a terrified puppy and a trail of violence. When she opened her eyes, the puppy was watching her with a look that broke her completely, an expression that said he understood more than a little dog should. He pawed at the ground again, at the drag trail leading away from the clearing. Emily followed his gaze. The trail was faint now, but it was there, a narrow path of crushed leaves and disturbed earth weaving deeper into the forest, where the shadows thickened and the trees grew closer together. The puppy barked once, soft but urgent. Emily stood, gripping the harness tightly, resolve hardening her features. "Okay," she breathed. "You're right. We're not done, not until we find her." The puppy trotted ahead, ears perked, determination glowing through his fear. Emily followed him, each step heavier than the last, knowing full well that whatever they found next would change everything. The forest grew darker as Emily and the puppy followed the faint drag trail deeper into the trees. The canopy above thickened, swallowing the light and casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist across the ground. The air cooled sharply, carrying a damp, earthy smell that hinted they were nearing a place untouched for a long time. The puppy trotted ahead with newfound urgency, occasionally stopping to make sure Emily was close behind. His ears stayed pinned back, not from exhaustion, but from fear. Fear of what he knew they were walking toward. After nearly 10 minutes of weaving through thick underbrush, Emily saw it. A structure, gray, slanted, and half swallowed by the forest. An abandoned cabin. Its wooden planks were rotting, the roof sagging as moss and vines clung desperately to its sides. Broken windows stared out like hollow eyes, and the door hung crookedly from rusted hinges. A place long forgotten. A place no one should be. The puppy froze a few feet from the cabin, his tiny body dropping low to the ground. His ears flattened, a sharp whine escaping him. He took one hesitant step backward, glancing at Emily with terror shining in his eyes. Emily stopped beside him. "This is where they brought her, isn't it?" The puppy whimpered and pressed against her leg, refusing to go any closer. Emily scanned the surroundings. Circling footprints, disturbed patches of soil, deep paw prints leading right up to the cabin's front steps. She swallowed hard. An injured K9 had come this far, dragged, or forced herself here. A knot tightened in Emily's stomach. "All right," she whispered to the trembling pup. "Stay here. I'll check inside." She approached the cabin with her hand hovering near her holster, not to draw her weapon, but to reassure herself that she had something, anything to rely on if the danger wasn't gone yet. The porch groaned under her weight, dust lifting in small clouds as her boots pressed into the rotting wood. The door creaked as she nudged it open. A damp, musty smell rolled into her face, old wood, decay, and something metallic beneath it. Blood? Emily's throat tightened. The interior was dark, but faint rays of light pushed through the broken slats, illuminating, floating, dust particles. "Hello?" she called softly. "Is anyone in here?" Silence. She stepped inside. The cabin was small, barely one room, with a collapsed table, a few scattered tools, and walls stained with age. But her eyes went immediately to the floor, deep scratches etched into the wood. Fresh, desperate, the same marks she'd seen in the clearing. Her pulse spiked, and then she saw it. In the far corner, partially hidden behind an old overturned chair, lay a dark shape. Still, quiet, too large to be the puppy. Emily's chest tightened as she approached slowly. The puppy outside barked sharply, his voice trembling. Emily knelt beside the shape, her breath catching in her throat as her flashlight swept across it. A German shepherd. An adult. Barely breathing. Her fur was matted with dirt and blood, her flank rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths. One leg was twisted unnaturally. Her chest bore bruises and cuts. It was a miracle she had made it this far. Emily pressed a shaking hand against her mouth. "Oh, God! You're the mother!" The dog's eyes flickered open, weak, glassy, but aware. Emily felt tears burn her eyes. "You held on," she whispered. "You held on for him." The mother's gaze drifted toward the open doorway, where the puppy's frightened silhouette trembled. Emily's heart shattered, and she knew. She couldn't let them lose each other now. Emily's knees hit the dusty cabin floor before she even realized she'd dropped to them. The mother German shepherd lay curled weakly in the corner, her chest rising in shallow, broken breaths. Her once strong muscles twitched with pain, her fur tangled with dirt, dried blood, and splinters from the struggle that had nearly taken her life. Hey, girl," Emily whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm here now. You're not alone." The dog blinked slowly, exhausted eyes lifting just enough to acknowledge her presence. For a heartbeat, Emily saw everything. In those eyes. Fear, pain, and the fierce love that had pushed the dog through the forest, dragging her battered body just to keep searching for safety. A mother, fighting until her last breath. A soft cry echoed from the doorway. The puppy. He stood trembling at the edge of the cabin, too afraid to enter, too heartbroken to leave. His tiny paws pressed into the dirt as he stared at the mother who had vanished from him hours ago. His tail lowered, ears drooped, and a desperate whimper escaped him. Emily looked back at the mother. "Is this why you held on?" she whispered. "For him?" The dog's eyes flickered again, slow, intentional, toward the doorway. Emily felt her throat tighten. She moved carefully, lowering herself as close as she could to assess the injuries. Deep bruising along the ribs, a severe gash on her flank, her back leg swollen and twisted, likely dislocated or fractured, and her breathing fast, shallow, strained. "She doesn't have long," Emily murmured, panic edging into her voice. She reached again for her radio, lifting it high, turning toward the window, angling it toward the broken roof, anything that might catch a signal. "Dispatch, this is Officer Hayes. I need immediate medical assistance. I have a critically injured K-9. Repeat, critically injured requesting emergency transport." Static. The cabin swallowed the sound. Emily's heart hammered. She couldn't move the mother alone. If she tried and jostled one of the injuries wrong, she could do more harm than good. But leaving her here wasn't an option. A soft tap on her boot made her look down. The puppy had finally stepped inside. He crept toward his mother in slow, frightened steps, as if afraid she might vanish again if he moved too fast. When he reached her, he curled beside her head, pressing his tiny body against her neck. His tail brushed her muzzle gently, as though trying to remind her he was here, alive, waiting. The mother lifted her head half, an inch, just enough to nuzzle him weakly. Emily's chest broke open. "Okay," she breathed shakily. "I'm not losing her. Not today." She shrugged off her outer jacket and bunched it into a cushion. With steady hands, she slid it beneath the mother dog's head, lifting her slightly so she could breathe easier. The dog winced but didn't resist. "It's all right, sweetheart," Emily soothed. "I'm going to get you both out of here." The puppy pawed at her arm, looking up at her with pleading, terrified eyes. Emily stroked his head. "I promise." She stood, resolve turning her fear into movement. If the forest had taken her signal, she would carry the fight out herself. She was getting them out of here, even if she had to do it alone. Emily's hands moved before her brain caught up. Training took over. Years of field experience, emergency drills, and instinct all converging in this single, desperate moment. She dropped to her knees again beside the injured mother, dog, pulling open the small first aid pouch clipped to her duty belt. "Stay with me, girl," she whispered, her voice trembling despite her effort to stay calm. "I'm going to help you. I promise." The mother dog whimpered softly, her eyes fluttering. The puppy curled against her, tiny body shaking so hard Emily could feel the tremors through the floorboards. Emily swallowed her fear and got to work. Her fingers brushed gently along the injured dog's rib cage, feeling the uneven rise and fall. Not broken, but badly bruised. The gash on her flank was worse than Emily initially realized. Dried and fresh blood mixed at the edges, and dirt had crusted into the wound. "Okay," Emily breathed, pulling disinfectant wipes from her pouch. "This is going to sting." The moment the cool wipe touched the wound, the dog yelped sharply, her whole body tensing. The puppy barked in panic, pressing himself protectively against his mother. Emily's voice softened immediately. "No, sweetheart. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but I need to clean this so we can get you home." She continued cleaning with slow, delicate strokes, whispering reassurances between each wipe. The dog trembled, but she didn't pull away. She trusted Emily, just as her puppy had trusted her from the very beginning. Once the wound was clear enough to treat, Emily reached for a roll of gauze. She wrapped it carefully around the dog's midsection, ensuring enough pressure to slow the bleeding without causing more pain. "You're doing so well," Emily murmured. "Just hang on a little longer." Her breath caught when her fingers brushed the dog's hind leg, the twisted one. The swelling had worsened, and the angle was too unnatural to ignore. "A dislocation," she whispered. "Maybe a fracture." She checked her radio again, lifting it high toward the cracked ceiling. Still nothing, just static drowning out her hope. Emily clenched her jaw. There was no one coming. No backup. No EMTs. No K-9 handlers searching for their missing partner. Just her, a devastated puppy, and a dying mother who had fought until she couldn't anymore. "No," Emily breathed, shaking her head fiercely. "You're not dying here." She pulled her jacket from beneath the dog's head and folded it into a makeshift sling. With painstaking gentleness, she slid the fabric under the mother dog's torso. The dog whimpered in pain, trembling violently. The puppy barked again, sharp, frantic, nuzzling his mother's face as if begging her to stay awake. Emily blinked away tears. "I know, baby. I know." She tore strips from her undershirt with steady hands and wrapped them around the dog's leg to stabilize it temporarily. It wasn't perfect, but it would keep her alive long enough to move her. When the last knot was tied, Emily exhaled shakily and looked at both dogs. "All right," she whispered, voice hardening with determination. "I've done everything I can. Here. Now, we get you out." The mother's eyes drifted open faintly, and her gaze, weak but unwavering, locked with Emily's. It was gratitude, trust, hope. And Emily felt something ignite inside her. She wasn't just saving a dog, she was saving a family. Emily braced herself, sliding her arms beneath the injured mother dog's fragile body. Even with the makeshift sling supporting her, the dog's weight pressed heavily against Emily's muscles. Every small movement drew a soft whimper from the wounded K9, and each sound cut straight through Emily's heart. "It's okay. I've got you," she murmured, lifting carefully. The mother dog trembled violently but didn't resist. Her puppy scrambled beside them, tiny paws clicking anxiously across the wooden floor as he followed every step Emily took. He wouldn't let either of them out of his sight. Not now. Not ever. Emily stepped out of the cabin, the harsh sunlight briefly blinding her after the darkness inside. She adjusted her grip, locking her arms securely around the injured dog. The puppy circled her legs nervously before trotting ahead, as if clearing the path for her. "Lead the way, then, buddy," Emily whispered, breath tightening under the weight. The little pup barked once, then darted toward the hidden trail they had entered from. Emily followed. The forest, which had earlier felt ominous and claustrophobic, now became an obstacle course she had to conquer. Every root threatened her balance. Every low branch scraped her arms or snagged her uniform. But she never loosened her grip. She couldn't. The mother dog's breathing rasped against her ear. "Stay with me," Emily whispered. "Don't give up. Your baby needs you." The puppy glanced back repeatedly, checking that Emily still followed, his tiny body fueled by determination far larger than his size. He whined each time the mother dog whimpered, as though trying to encourage her with his small, brave heart. When they reached the thickest part of the trail, Emily paused to tighten the sling and adjust her hold. Sweat trickled down her temples despite the cool forest air. The strain burned through her muscles, but she couldn't let the pain slow her down. She tried the radio again. "Dispatch, please. This is Officer Hayes. I need immediate assistance. Can anyone hear me?" Static. Her jaw clenched. "Come on. Not now." The puppy pawed her boot impatiently, urging her forward. "All right," she breathed. "We keep going." The forest path began to rise, each step demanding more strength than the last. Emily's legs trembled under the weight of the injured dog, but she pushed through it, teeth gritted, every breath a vow. Halfway up the incline, the mother dog twitched in her arms, letting out a sharp cry of pain. Emily froze. "It's okay, girl. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We're almost there." The puppy ran to her side, pressing his little body against her leg in a gesture so pure it nearly made her cry. His eyes shone with fear and hope all at once. Emily inhaled deeply, forced strength into her shaking limbs, and continued. Finally, they reached a small ridge where sunlight broke through the canopy. Emily stepped into it and stopped. Her radio crackled. Just once. Just enough. Emily lifted it quickly. "Dispatch, this is Officer Hayes. Do you copy? I have a critically injured K9. Send medical response immediately. A faint voice broke through the static. Copy. Signal weak, but we hear you. Provide coordinates. Emily exhaled a shaky breath, tears burning her eyes. They weren't alone anymore. She looked down at the puppy, who stared up at her with trembling hope. We did it, she whispered. Help is coming. The world blurred into sirens, rushing paramedics, and the frantic thud of Emily's heartbeat. The rescue team had reached them minutes after she sent her coordinates. Now she sat in the back of the ambulance, holding the mother dog's paw as medics worked urgently around her. BP dropping. Get a line in. She's lost a lot of blood. Stabilize that leg. Stay with us, girl. Stay with us. The puppy cried non-stop, his tiny voice raw with fear as he tried to climb onto the stretcher. A medic gently held him back, whispering, Easy, little guy. She's fighting. Emily's chest tightened. She had seen injured animals before, but something about this mother dog, her resilience, her devotion, felt different. She'd crawled through the forest, fought off attackers, and refused to die, because her baby still needed her. As the ambulance screeched to a stop outside the emergency veterinary center, Emily scooped the trembling puppy into her arms and sprinted after the stretcher. The doors burst open. Severe trauma, internal bleeding, possible fracture, a vet tech called. Prep surgery immediately, another shouted. Emily tried to follow, but a staff member blocked her gently. Ma'am, I'm sorry. You can't go in there. They need space. The doors swung shut, and just like that, they were separated. The puppy let out a cry so heartbreaking Emily had to hold him tighter to keep herself from breaking down. He pawed at the door, claws scraping the metal, desperate to reach his mother. Emily sank into a chair in the waiting area, cradling him against her chest. His tiny heartbeat thudded frantically beneath her fingers. It's okay, she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she believed it. They're doing everything they can. Minutes stretched into an hour. An hour stretched into 2. Finally, a vet emerged from the surgery room, removing her gloves with a slow, heavy breath. Emily stood immediately, heart hammering. Is she... She couldn't finish the sentence. The vet gave a tired, gentle nod. She made it through surgery. She's not out of danger yet, but the fact that she survived this long, it's extraordinary. The puppy barked, tail wagging in tiny, confused tremors. But the vet's eyes softened further. There's more. Emily swallowed. What is it? The vet motioned for her to follow and led her to a quiet exam room. On the counter lay a tablet displaying records, microchip data, training information, medical history. She wasn't just any dog, the vet said. She was part of a specialized K9 training program. Highly advanced, loyal to a fault. Emily already knew that part. She'd seen the courage firsthand. But then the vet tapped another file. She recently gave birth. Emily froze. She had a litter of 8 pups. 8 newborns. Her breath caught as the vet continued softly. 7 puppies were found earlier this week during a raid on an illegal breeders' camp. They were malnourished, tied, and abandoned in a crate. Emily's eyes widened. Then why was she out there alone? The vet exhaled sharply. Because she escaped. She broke free. She went back for the only puppy the traffickers missed. Emily felt the world tilt. The puppy in her arms. The brave little one who led her through the forest. The one who wouldn't stop searching. He was the forgotten one, the vet said, and she went to save him. Emily's eyes flooded with tears as she held the puppy closer. The mother had risked everything, every breath, every ounce of strength, to find her lost baby. And the baby had risked everything to find help. Emily stood outside the recovery room window, the puppy pressed against her chest as they both watched the mother dog sleeping under soft, white blankets. Machines beeped steadily beside her, tubes and bandages wrapped around her fragile body. but she was alive. She had survived what should have killed her, all because she refused to leave her lost baby behind, and because a tiny puppy had led a stranger through the forest to save her. The puppy whimpered softly and pawed at the glass, his little nails tapping a quiet rhythm. His eyes stayed locked on his mother, wide and shimmering with longing. "She can see you," Emily whispered, rubbing his back. "She's fighting so she can come back to you." Just then, the mother's eyes fluttered open. Weakly, slowly, but they opened. The puppy barked, a tiny, trembling sound that filled the hallway. The mother's gaze drifted toward the window, and when she saw him, her tail twitched beneath the blanket. Emily felt tears rise instantly. That one small movement said everything. The mother recognized her baby. She understood he was safe, and she knew who had brought him there. But when the vet approached Emily, the warm smile faded into something more serious. "She'll survive," the vet said gently. "But she can't return to K-9 service. Her injuries are too severe. She'll need long-term care, and someone patient enough to help her heal." Emily glanced down at the puppy in her arms. His little tail wagged hopefully, as if he already knew what the vet was going to say, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. "We've arranged placement for her," the vet continued. "But there's something else." She crouched to Emily's eye level. "The puppy. He hasn't left your side since you arrived. He follows your scent. He sleeps only when he's with you, and anytime someone tries to take him, he panics." Emily blinked in surprise. "Really?" The vet nodded. "He chose you, Officer Hayes. He feels safe with you, trusted you instantly. And after what he endured, that kind of trust is rare." Emily looked down at him. The puppy gazed up with soft, warm eyes, as if asking the question he couldn't say out loud. "Will you be my person?" Her heart clenched. He had been brave beyond measure. He had faced fear, loss, and danger to find someone, her, to save the only family he had left. And now he stood here, trembling in her arms, offering her his entire world. The vet placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. "We would support adoption, if you're willing." Emily swallowed hard. Yes, of course." The puppy let out an excited bark, nuzzling her cheek as if he understood every word. Tears slipped down Emily's face as she held him close. "I promise," she whispered into his fur, "you'll never be alone again." The mother dog blinked slowly from her bed, watching them. Her breathing eased, her body relaxing for the first time since the nightmare began. She knew her puppy was safe now. Not just safe. Loved. Emily kissed the top of his head. "You're a hero," she said softly, "and I think I know what to call you." The puppy tilted his head. "Hero," she whispered, "that's your name." Outside the recovery room, the lights glowed softly. The forest danger was behind them, the fear fading into memory. What remained was a new family, unexpected, unbreakable, and born from the courage of one tiny, determined pup. And for the first time since the ordeal began, Emily felt hope again.